So Don Lemon was arrested overnight in connection to the protests that unfolded in that Minneapolis church where we saw protesters actually go inside, and Don Lemon was a part of it. Now, they're arresting him because they're saying that he was an active participant, yet he is claiming freedom of speech and that he was simply reporting what was taking place live on the scene. Now, there's a lot of questions that are being raised here, the difference between freedom of press and law enforcement, freedom of religion, protecting your ability to worship. Let me know your thoughts, but let's take a look at the latest headlines so that way you can see it for yourself. Don Lemon arrested by federal authorities after protest at Minnesota church service. Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a post on Friday on X that Lemon was arrested, as were three others, in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon arrested in Southern California. Feds call him an online agitator. And take a look at the live feeds coming in. Updated 10 minutes ago. Live coverage. Anti-ICE demonstration spread. DOJ launches civil rights probe into Alex Pretty fatal shooting in Minneapolis. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon arrested last night in connection with a protest at a Minnesota church service earlier this month. So I'm going to get you caught up on the latest and let me know your thoughts. Do you think that he should have been arrested? Have you seen what unfolded as we saw those protesters enter into the church? He actually went and interviewed the pastor while the disruption was taking place. And you're going to see here, they're saying that he was a participant and actually helped in coordination of that particular protest. But he is saying he was helping to coordinate it, but was just reporting. Let me know. Do you agree with Don Lemon being arrested overnight? If you think so, put yes. If you think no, put no. Let me know your thoughts. I'm going to get you the latest details. We're going to dive right in. Now, before we do me a favor. If you appreciate the breaking news updates, please take a second, hit that thumbs up like button for me. Just helps while we're live on YouTube spread this out across the platform. Subscribe to stay up to date. I'll keep you up to speed on everything. We have this happening right now, the conflict in Minneapolis, conflict over with Iran, and we're hearing the United States could be entering into war anytime. If you missed it last night, the update coming out from the Pentagon that their number one priority is keeping the U.S. homeland safe because potential attacks on our soil are becoming very real. This reported right now, January of 2026. We're also waiting to see what's going to unfold with the economy. Tariff checks. We're hearing a new Fed chair is going to be entering in, and today is the final day to see whether we're going to be entering into another government shutdown. There is a lot going on. To stay up to date, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button, and as you guys know here on the channel, I cite all the sources. They're hyperlinked in the description so you can read them for yourself. But with that being said, let's just dive into the video footage coming out left and right this morning as we're hearing Don Lemon has been arrested for his connection with that protest at that Minneapolis church. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Hi, I'm Diana Macedo. We have breaking news. The Justice Department confirms journalist Don Lemon has been arrested in connection to an anti-ICE protest at a Minnesota church. Earlier this month, protesters interrupted worship services at City's Church in St. Paul, where one of the pastors leads the local ICE field office. Now, Lemon is the latest person to face potential charges for allegedly violating worshipers' First Amendment rights. ABC's Trevor Ault has the latest.
Hey there, Diane. So this was pretty shocking news to hear announced from Don Lemon's attorney that he was taken into custody overnight here in Los Angeles. They say he was here covering the Grammys, but the arrest stems from an incident earlier this month in Minneapolis, a protest at a church where the pastor is an ICE agent. Now, we know that the Trump administration had been trying to charge 8 people in that incident, including Don Lemon and his producer, saying that they were impeding on the religious rights of the people there at the church. But Don Lemon has said he was there as a journalist along with his producer. We know a magistrate judge reviewed the evidence in the case, declined the charges for Lemon and his producer and a few other people who were there. The Trump administration tried to appeal, and a federal judge also upheld the ruling that the charges were not allowed. Now, this would indicate that an arrest now has been made. An indictment must have followed. We've heard a statement, a tweet from the Attorney General who said that the arrest of Don Lemon and a few other people overnight were made at her direction. We're still waiting on the official details of that indictment. What we do know is that Don Lemon's attorney released a statement calling this an unprecedented attack on free speech, and we are expecting to see Don Lemon in court a little bit later here today in Los Angeles. Diane?
Trevor Ault, thank you. And let's bring in ABC News legal analyst Brian Buckmeyer for more. Brian, last week a magistrate judge reportedly rejected bringing charges against Lemon. And now the Attorney General says federal agents arrested Lemon at her direction. Why the change?
I think the change is just the avenue in which the DOJ is pursuing charges. They first initially went through a judge to see if they could okay not only the arrest, but I'm assuming also okay any kind of search of Don Lemon as well as potentially his producer to see if there's additional evidence of other charges. Now it seems like they're going for an arrest through a complaint, and then I think they're going to try to secure an indictment either by already presenting this case to a grand jury rather than going through a judge or doing so in the future. We'll see whether or not an indictment is unsealed today to see what path they went about arresting Don Lemon.
The case centers on the FACE Act, which makes it a crime to intimidate or interfere anyone exercising their religious freedom at a place of worship. How does that apply to the protesters in this case compared to journalists who covered the protest?
Yeah, so FACE stands for the Freedom of Access to Clinical Entrance. It makes it a violation not only to obstruct a person to going in and out of a clinic, but also there's a section that involves violating a person's ability to exercise their First Amendment in regards to freedom of religion and religious worship. I don't see how it applies here. I think it's a bit of a stretch. I think that's why not just one, but two judges rejected it, because you would have to show that Don Lemon had the intent, I think, to at least obstruct individuals from being able to come in and out of that worship in violation of their constitutional rights. But fortunately for him, he live streamed this. And typically I would tell people, don't stream things, you're getting close to committing a crime. But this live stream would show his intent, that he intended not to obstruct people or deny their religious rights, but actually to use his First Amendment right to try to see what was going on, ask people questions and get the reaction. So I don't really see a violation of the FACE Act here.
The Justice Department is also using a Reconstruction-era law meant to crack down on the Ku Klux Klan. They argue journalists can't conspire to violate worshipers' rights. How strong is their case?
Yeah, so this law was meant to stop people, as you said, from the KKK, of disguising themselves and conspiring with two or more people to inhibit or violate another person's constitutional rights. Again, if you look at this fact pattern, if you're speaking specifically to Don Lemon and his producer, I don't see what you're saying that the two of them conspired to violate someone else's rights through the use of disguise or any kind of means that fall into the law. Again, it seems pretty clear. We all know who Don Lemon is. He's not disguising himself. We all know what his intent is there. He's trying to get information. Again, I think the issue of intent makes these prosecutions fall short unless there's some other evidence that we don't see yet.
There you have it, man. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And I saw somebody say, I don't like Don Lemon, but I don't think that he should have been arrested. Let me know your thoughts. Do you agree with that statement, or do you think that he violated the ability for people to worship, which they're talking about in the FACE Act, which is impeding upon people's ability to worship? Now, he said it was primarily for other things like health facilities, but they're saying that there is a clause in there that applies directly to places of worship. Let me know your thoughts. Is him in the middle of the service interviewing the pastor impeding upon people's ability to worship? This particular individual that we saw in that video clip saying no, because he didn't stop people from entering or their ability. Seems like there needs to be a clarification of boundaries as to what it actually means. Also, I saw some people commenting that they should stay outside of the church building on the street if they want to protest, not actually go into the building and then disrupt the service. I guess it would depend on what your definition of impeding upon worship would mean. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But without a doubt, this is going to set a precedent, a standard, I think, here, as we're going to see what unfolds here with this particular case with Don Lemon. But let's take a look at some more video footage so you can get more details.
As we are learning this breaking news that former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested. Here's what we're learning. This is from Bill Melugin with Fox News saying, per multiple law enforcement sources, former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles this morning in connection to the storming of a church in Minnesota by anti-ICE agitators. We also do have some more social media posts as well that we'll put up on your screen here for you. But once again, as we just read there, this comes after Lemon followed and spoke to demonstrators who disrupted a church service in a video he posted to his YouTube channel. The New York Post also reporting that it is not immediately clear what charges he is facing at this time. This comes after former CNN host Don Lemon said during an interview last week week that the Trump administration would go around a judge or retrofit a law to prosecute him after he followed agitators into a St. Paul, Minnesota church earlier this month. Also last week, a federal magistrate judge rejected the Justice Department's attempt to bring charges against Lemon. Lemon said that he needed to be in it for the long haul as well as keep calm and carry on. Lemon said after the DOJ called him out that he was just covering the protest and that it was an act of journalism. The agitators went to disrupt the service at St. Paul's City's church because they believed a pastor at the church had collaborated with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So once again, we are bringing you this breaking news here. As we do know, Don Lemon arrested after that protest that disrupted that church service there in Minnesota. Now, we also do know that we heard from Homan a bit earlier this week as well. Immigration operations continuing in Minnesota. Just yesterday in White House Borders are Tom Homan's first briefing after taking over Operation Metro Surge, and he said they're working on a drawdown plan for federal agents in Minnesota, but it depends on cooperation with state and local officials. And this comes after Homan said he's had conversations with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Minnesota Department of Corrections, Minnesota Attorney General, and other county sheriffs and local officials. And he said cooperation with local authorities, especially jails and prisons, will give federal agents better access to people in the United States illegally. This would then lead to fewer federal law enforcement on Minnesota streets. Homan said the drawdown plan of federal agents depends on cooperation and targets they have left to find. As for the number of federal agents in Minnesota as of just yesterday, Homan would not provide a number. Previously, court records show there were more than 3,000 federal agents in the state as part of Operation Metro Surge. So this is some breaking news here, and we are actually working behind the scenes here to bring you some more information. New info from AP. All right. So my producer, I don't know if you just heard her, she just handed me an article. We're getting some new information here. So let me just read this. This is according to the Associated Press. A journalist, Don Lemon, has been arrested after he entered a Minnesota church and recorded anti-immigration enforcement protesters who disrupted a service in an incident that increased tensions between residents and the Trump administration. And that's according to his lawyers putting this out today. Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents in Los Angeles, where he had been covering the Grammy Awards. That's according to his attorney, Abby Lowell. It's unclear what charge or charges he is facing in the January 18th protest. The arrest came after a magistrate judge last week rejected prosecutors' initial bid to charge him. And Lemon, who was fired from CNN in 2023, has said he has no affiliation to the organization that went into that church and that he was there as a journalist chronicling protesters. And we also do have this post here I'd want to read to you. This is from, again, Abby Lowell, his attorney, saying, quote, Don has been a journalist for 30 years, and his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable. A prominent civil rights attorney and at least two other people involved in the protests were arrested last week. Prosecutors have accused them of civil rights violations for disrupting a service at the city's church in St. Paul, where a local official with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
There you have it. Wow. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I see a ton of different opinions coming in right now. People are saying he should not have been in a place of worship. If he wasn't going to worship, that he actually was going to cover a protest that he helped organize. I saw some other people saying freedom of the press. And again, it kind of, it's like, where is the line? Freedom of press, freedom of religion, protecting public safety and the ability to go worship, or it being disrupted. Let me know your thoughts. Also, the protesters, the agitators themselves entering into the building, would you say that that is just crossing the line? And while it's actually taking place, he's trying to interview the pastor. The pastor is saying that this is a disgrace, that they need to get out. And then that individual, Don Lemon, actually in that recording, while he's trying to interview the pastor, tells him, don't touch me, don't push me. Well, they were in the middle of the disruption at that very moment. So let me know your thoughts. We're hearing that they're going to be diving deep into this. They've got their attorneys all set. They're going to be discussing this to get clarification on where the lines, the boundaries, the standards are. Let's take a look at some more video clips coming out on this.
And to a Fox News alert, journalist Don Lemon has been arrested in connection with an anti-ICE protest at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Bill Melugin joins us now with more on this breaking news. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, Charlie, good morning to you. Our colleague David Spunt and I getting this breaking news from multiple law enforcement sources just minutes ago, confirming that former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles just after midnight this morning at a hotel. This obviously all in connection with that storming of a church in St. Paul, Minnesota by that group of anti-ICE agitators. Now remember, the feds had gone to judges to try to get Don Lemon arrested before. They went to a magistrate judge in Minnesota who didn't sign off on an arrest warrant for him. Then it went to a judge above him. He didn't sign off on an arrest warrant for him. Then it went to an appeals court. They also decided not to sign off for an arrest warrant for him. So there was experts who were predicting that perhaps the feds would go to a grand jury. It remains to be seen if that's what happened here, but we can confirm that Don Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles by federal agents just after midnight Los Angeles time at a hotel. Now, typically, standard procedure with an arrest like this is the defendant will likely make their first court appearance sometime the same day. So there's a chance we may see Don Lemon make his first court appearance in Los Angeles sometime today. But obviously, this is going to grab all sorts of headlines. 3 other protesters from that church storming, have already been arrested, including who the feds say was the organizer of that protest. The woman in the middle there is a school board member in St. Paul, and then the mugshot on the right is an online personality / agitator, if you want to call him that. He's known as DeWoke Farmer. Those were the 3 people that the feds had already arrested, but we have confirmed that Don Lemon has now been arrested in Los Angeles in connection with that viral incident. We all saw the video of it that spread and drew widespread condemnation. The feds have been going after these people on FACE Act violations. So this is still breaking news. Once we get more details about the potential charges here, a court appearance, we'll of course update our viewers, guys.
Really appreciate it. Of course, if it was a grand jury that did indict him, that's pretty unimpeachable. Bill Melugin, thank you so much.
Wow, there you have it, you guys. Now, as more comes in, like they said, we're going to be sharing that. But let's take a look at this. Now, this is all circulating around. I'm going to play for you the video footage, the conflict that's happening in Minneapolis. And let me know your thoughts on this. Do you support what's happening with ICE right now, going in and trying to get those that are here illegally? They're saying they're trying to make sure that those that have committed violent crimes or have committed any crimes are trying to get them out. But we have protesters, agitators that are involved that are interrupting or impeding upon the ability for ICE to operate. And some people are saying that we shouldn't even be calling them protesters anymore, like what we saw with Mr. Preddy, who was actually kicking the car and asking for the arrest of himself. And they're saying that it has crossed the line. And I think maybe identifying the boundaries of what is acceptable protesting versus what is actually agitating or becoming a part of the agitation, I guess you would call it. I think that they probably need to clarify this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you support what's happening with ICE or do you not support it? And if you don't support it, how do you protest it without getting yourself in the middle of the conflict itself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you support ICE, put ICE. If you don't, put anti-ICE. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. But let's take a look as we're hearing that the conflict in Minneapolis right now, it is raging on and things are still taking place and it is pretty intense. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video footage.
All right, during that commercial break, of course, we're keeping up for you on the president's cabinet meeting. It's his first of 2026. Everybody's assembled and it has been really informative. A lot of deliverables from the Trump administration so far. And Kayleigh mentioned this. We are awaiting word from Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary. With all that's gone on in Minneapolis and Twin Cities as a whole, because the church that got hit there by those agitators and rioters was in St. Paul, so the Twin Cities in general. But we are watching to see, she has been under pressure, Secretary Noem, for some of the things that have happened, including the deaths of 2 of those agitators, under pressure for the investigation, how it's handled, that sort of thing. And just the operations of ICE. And so with all of that, the president has been very vocal about supporting her publicly. The question now becomes, what will she say at this gathering? As everybody is bringing their updates to bear right now. We've been talking a little bit about it. You know, Kayleigh, one of the things that we've seen was a dynamic change on the ground in Minneapolis with Tom Homan. Not just Kristi Noem and her name bubbling up to, well, who wants to talk about this and take accountability versus what Minnesota calls, I mean, I'm not even going to repeat some of the political rhetoric there because it's horrible, but that's part of this whole thing. But Greg Bovino, the head of the Border Patrol, who is on the ground too. So it's a complete shift.
Complete shift. Tom Homan gave this morning what I think should be a model for any time you communicate on this issue. The number one issue is the economy, which is why I'm glad you went through what Scott Turner said. It's on people's minds. Number two is immigration. And Tom Homan flipped everything on its head this morning. Yes, he stood up for ICE officers. Yes, he reviewed the Biden record of 10 million illegal immigrants came in, 2 million gotaways. That should scare everyone. He is right about that. But he also said what has happened on the ground is not perfect. And anyone who has come to me and said what we are doing is perfect, I have pushed back and I said nothing is perfect. We're here to make changes. We're here to go by the book. And he clearly set down a set of rules that will protect the citizenry, bring in Keith Ellison, bring in local law enforcement. He gave deliverables to the point you mentioned that Keith Ellison, now when people leave county jail, they finish their sentence, guess what? They're going into the hands of ICE. That makes everyone safer. It's safer to arrest someone out of jail than on the streets. So Tom Homan has shifted everything in a way that is a huge value added to this administration.
You know, Guy, I want to push in a little bit on what Keith Ellison actually said. He said that they may now, local municipalities, police departments, sheriff's departments, they may now, which sounds like allowance from a sanctuary state, pick up the phone as they are releasing these criminal illegals, violent, into the communities again, pick up the phone to the federal agents and say, we're about to let these guys go, we're giving you a heads up. That's what Ellison said. So my big question is, are they no longer a sanctuary jurisdiction while this goes on? And how much is that going to cost them when, say, Amy Klobuchar or another Democrat runs for governor?
Or are they using weasel words to try to placate the administration temporarily to get a federal pullout that they can then spike the football on and go right back to their sanctuary nonsense? That's what I think the feds have to be wary of here. Mm-hmm. But if there has been some ground given, I think that would be a positive development. And the thing is, it shouldn't be that hard at all. If you're against ICE officers in communities and neighborhoods, you should be against sanctuary policies. Because if the transfers of these criminal aliens are happening behind bars, that is so much more preferable than these street operations. So it should be a no-brainer. Obviously, it has not been yet, but that might be changing.
Shannon.
Yeah, I think it changes the conversation, the narrative a bit, the way that this has all been laid out by Homan, because if you are against them in the streets, then you have to be for them going to the jails, or else you're not for getting rid of the worst of the worst. That's been the big complaint with people opposing ICE. They're catching all these other people. They're getting at American citizens. That's not going to happen if you're going to jail on an ICE detainer and picking up someone that you know what the convictions are, you know exactly who they are.
Yeah. Emily.
Yeah, a quick note on, as we talk about this cabinet meeting, on what Secretary Kennedy said, which I thought was really valuable and important too, as we talk about deliverables. He mentioned the fact that in the president's negotiations and deals that he achieved with these big pharmaceutical companies, that their stocks totally rose. They spiked. And that's in addition to the American people getting their prescription drugs for a much lower cost. So he talked about the fact that everyone benefited. And he also talked about the fact that now our R&D, including the actual medicine, will be able to be obtained here on American soil. He said the next pandemic, guess what? We don't have to rely on China to get those medicines anymore. They are all being made here. Now, I think something's going on, so I'll pause talking for a moment.
All right. The president right now, and we can see Kelly Loeffler there, I think. You can't see it on your screen, but we're able to see quite a few things here in the studio. We've got different camera angles. So as he continues to talk with his cabinet, we're going to take just a quick break and we'll come back.
There you have it, you guys. So you can see here on the screen, breaking news right now. Trump holds a cabinet meeting amid the Minnesota unrest and also amid the conflict that's taking place in the Middle East, and also amid the potential threat of attack on U.S. homeland soil. If you missed my live stream last night, we heard from the Pentagon just a couple days ago. They're saying this is their number one priority. They're going to be shifting their attention to the U.S. homeland, which is why we're also hearing that Trump is saying we need Greenland for strategic control of the Arctic. We need to have a golden dome. We need to have a world where Iran never has a nuclear weapon. We need to advance ahead of China and Russia and make sure we maintain distance so that way we are not susceptible to potential attacks here in North America, in the United States, which they're saying is a great possibility. I covered the details for you last night. I'm also going to keep you up to speed on more of the news coming out. Likely going to do another live stream later tonight. So if you haven't subscribed and turned on notifications, please do so, because there's a lot going on. I'm going to keep you up to speed here on the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe, you guys. And if you appreciate the Trump administration and what they're doing, drop a 47 in the comments for support for what's happening with ICE, for the arrest of Don Lemon, for him trying to secure Greenland. Drop a 47 if you support the Trump administration. Now, if you don't like what's happening with ICE, you don't feel like Don Lemon should have been arrested, you don't like what's happening with all of the foreign nations and the conflicts that are happening right now between the U.S. and they're saying that Trump's pushing too hard, drop a 46 for the previous administration with a vastly different approach. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'm going to keep you up to speed on everything. Now, if you want to know my opinions, join me on the new channel. Going to be releasing opinion pieces on Focus Point News over there on that channel, and also the Bible channel, as you guys know, dropping new videos every Thursday. More chapters released. We've almost got the entire book of Genesis. Then we're going to be jumping into the Gospel of John. If you like hearing the Bible in the King James Version, you can get it in my voice, the same voice bringing you the news, bringing you the Holy Bible. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and we're going to see what unfolds with Mr. Don Lemon. I will keep you up to speed. Take care. God bless. Catch you in the next one.